Shut up! Shut up!
At a grocery store parking lot, a father repeatedly beat his toddler son and screamed at him. A bystander recorded the video of this incident, which showed the man's aggressive educational approach to the fullest. 44-year-old James Collins was in the back seat of his truck, shouting at the child and constantly telling him to shut up. During this period, a woman attempted to intervene, and then Collins began to shout at her, telling her to mind her own business. The child's crying drew a crowd of onlookers, but this did not make James Collins stop what he was doing. Out of concern for the child's safety, a bystander called the police. After arriving at the scene, the police promptly arrested James Collins. He has been charged with first-degree child abuse and is currently being held in the Gwinnett County Jail with a bail of $4,600. The child was rushed to the hospital. Fortunately, he only suffered minor injuries and is currently receiving treatment from other family members and the Children's Services Department. This kind of educational approach is really terrifying. How could he bear to treat such a toddler like this? I hope he will never come into contact with this child again from now on. What's your opinion on this? What kind of punishment should this father receive?
This is the most dangerous female prisoner in the world, and you won't believe the horrible things she did to her family. Tanya and her husband have 2 children. They live in an apartment in Washington. One Wednesday, her husband decided to go out to buy a pizza because the kids were on a lunch break. At noon, he decided to go alone and leave their 4-year-old son and 15-month-old daughter at home with their mother. He thought his wife was a good person, having been with her for over 10 years. The trip would take at most 30 minutes. Shortly after he left, the 4-year-old boy was playing in the kitchen with his sister, and something horrible happened. She decided to put her daughter in the oven and turn it on. When the father returned, he entered the apartment and smelled burnt meat. But he didn't worry too much, since they had bought pizza. However, when he went to get a glass of water in the kitchen and saw what was happening there, he was completely terrified. And you won't believe what the mother did. The police were devastated, and they said they had never seen anything like it in their lives. Stay tuned, press the plus button, and comment baby for more details in part 2.
Cet homme a violé et tué une fillette de 3 ans et meurt seulement 1 mois après le début de sa peine de prison. Robert Fisher avait été condamné à 40 ans de prison pour le viol et le meurtre de la petite Josephina Cunningham. Fisher avait forcé l'enfant à consommer des somnifères, l'a agressé et a ensuite tenté de dissimuler ce qu'il avait fait. En réalité, il s'était lié d'amitié avec la mère de l'enfant. Un jour, alors que la maman était absente, la fillette lui avait été confiée. Et c'est là qu'il a commis l'acte inhumain. Lors de la condamnation, la procureure Antonia Edwards a déclaré que Fisher avait utilisé des lingettes, Clorox, pour essayer de cacher ses crimes, frottant le visage de l'enfant si fort qu'il en avait arraché la pigmentation. Il avait utilisé ces lingettes sur tout son corps, allant même jusqu'à les introduire à l'intérieur de celui-ci. Il avait été condamné à 20 ans de prison après avoir accepté un accord de plaidoyer, proposé uniquement pour que la famille n'ait pas à assister à un procès et à entendre les détails horribles de son crime. Récemment, il a été retrouvé mort en prison. L'administration pénitentiaire a refusé de révéler la cause du décès, qui devrait être déterminée par les médecins légistes. Dites-moi ce que vous en pensez dans les commentaires. Selon vous, que s'est-il passé? Était-ce volontaire ou les autres détenus s'en sont-ils chargés?
Story!
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words.
Photos, but it might be in a... Let me just go through them all. This one?
That one. Zoom in if you can zoom in.
All right, let me make it full screen.
All right, yeah, you see in the background there, folks, if we can get a closer picture, you see what appears to be some rivulets and some blood right to the right. Now, this is again, I believe this is the kitchen, and that could be a cabinet. Can you all see that?
Yeah, initially I thought it was a door frame, but I'm not sure.
I don't read. There's no door unless there's a closet. There's no door
Yeah.
to get into the kitchen. It's a step down, and then you make a right turn.
So Leroy sends in a super chat and says cartel hit. Nobody knows. There's people talking about that, but I would say it's not probable.
You can't zoom in a little further?
If I had my laptop,
Can you right click? Can you right click and then
no.
All right. Yeah, because on other photos that I saw, up in that upper right hand corner of the frame, you see what looks like a contact transfer possibly, and then you see these rivulets coming down.
Yeah.
And see, now I was looking, I was a little bit confused, and I'm trying to compare and contrast interior photos of the kitchen and another series of photos through the sliding glass door into the kitchen to see if that in fact is in the kitchen, because initially I was, seeing that white cloth material, I thought it might be bedding and that might be the headboard of a bed, but I do believe it was the kitchen because I found plenty of photos of crime scene detectives on the outside of the house processing this window.
Josh just taught me.
Oh, there you go.
Control.
There you go. All right. Can everybody see all of that? Can you see what looks like rivulets of blood flowing down on there?
Yeah, you can see small, short ones here.
And you go above it. It starts on top of it.
Yeah, I see it here.
Yeah. And then it's flowing down, especially on the right side, right there. Yeah.
That goes all the way down.
You think that might be a sheet? Might be a sheet.
Yeah, there's evidence tape over the window.
Right. Could that be a sheet or some kind of
looks like a robe.
Robe or some covering a victim? Don't know what's going on there.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah, this is now I can go back.
After a concert night with her friends, 17-year-old teenage model Kate Moyer finds herself watching Rambo with two strangers she met on her way home. But this seemingly regular night is hiding a disturbing secret. Kate is actually sitting in between two of Australia's most notorious serial killers, responsible for nearly a dozen murders, all happening in the last month. Defenseless, her assailants were holding her down in front of the TV, forcing her to watch, with a knife under her throat. As the movie was coming to an end, she knew her time was up. Kidnapped, assaulted, and chained up to a bed, Kate Moyer was determined to find a way to make her captors pay, even at the cost of her own life.
So she made a calculation that if the worst happened, she'd still get her revenge from beyond the grave.
People react differently with fear, but hers was really, you won't get away with this, whatever you end up doing with me.
It's Monday, November 10th, a seemingly normal day in West Australia. But in the suburbs, a half-naked teenager covered in bruises and restraint marks is running for her life along the sidewalk of Morehouse Street. Barely alive, 17-year-old Kate Moyer just escaped from the infamous David and Catherine Burney.
It's pretty rare to survive serial killers. I went from being really, really scared, terrified, to being like, I've really got to do something here.
Left alone by her captor for only a minute, Kate was trapped in a room with only a door and a small window, both locked tight. Knowing this would probably be her only chance, Kate attempted to force open the window.
I finally got the courage to check the window to make the noise that was needed to break the lock.
After jumping down and landing violently on her head, Kate was concussed and had a hard time getting her footing, but managed to painfully walk to the house next door.
Knocked on the door, no one home. I'm hysterical. I'm crying and laughing at the same time. Next house, no one home. Next house, no one home. Went to their back fence, hurdled their back fence, got attacked by a black dog.
As she fought off the dog behind the fence, Kate couldn't help but imagine her captors down the street, looking for her. Once she successfully crossed the backyard, she noticed a man smoking a cigarette outside of a store. Running like she had never ran before, Kate reached him in seconds.
I ran up to him and said, I've been, please take me inside and call the police.
Were you thinking at this point that she might come after you?
Absolutely. Why do you think? That's why I said if a woman comes here and says I've had a fight with her, that I'm her daughter, don't believe her. Can you please call the police?
News stories like this make me lose hope in humanity. So on September 7th, somebody was robbed in Lincoln, Nebraska. The police were called out and eventually they found the 2 suspects. Now, one of the suspects, named Dominique Christ, allowed the police to look through his phone, so they took possession of his phone, and what they found inside of that phone was incredibly disturbing. They found, quote, hundreds if not thousands of images and videos of child sexual abuse materials. I'm just going to read you the rest of this report. They said, the content, police said, showed children being violently sexually assaulted and exploited. The youngest child they found being abused on Christ's phone was a newborn with their hospital bracelet on. This is all coming from court records. Now, disturbingly, in July, officers said they discovered messages Christ had exchanged with another unknown pedophile. The pedophile was asking Christ to send them child pornography. OMG, please flood me with child porn. I want to relapse so hard, the pedophile wrote to Christ. Christ replied, I gotcha, I make you relapse. Police said Christ went on to send the pedophile 215 attachments depicting young boys being sexually abused. He'd go on to tell the pedophile twice that he loves being pedo, the affidavit shows. So these are the types of people that are just out there in society. Just people that look normal on the surface, but they are engaged in some of the darkest, most disturbing shit when no one's looking. And here in America, I mean all around the world, but especially here in America, we seem to have a major problem with pedophilia, and it really seems like nobody talks about it. I mean, yes, there's the Epstein thing that has kind of brought these issues into the limelight recently, but I've been talking about this shit for years, and it's crazy how this is such a massive problem, and it seems like nobody's really doing anything to stop it. I don't even know what you could really do to stop this sort of a thing from happening, but videos like this that I make hopefully raise awareness in the people that see them and show them that people like this exist everywhere. This is a story from Lincoln, Nebraska, and it's one of the most disturbing things I've read all year. It's hard to imagine how many more people like this are out there that haven't been caught and who most likely will never be caught.
These policemen in Peru found a delivery driver with an 800-year-old mummy stuffed in his bag.
Stuffed in his bag?
Yes, bro. So in 2023, the police found these 3 dudes that were like drinking at a park. Police came up to talk to these guys, pretty much see what they were doing there, and they started searching these dudes. One of these dudes was a delivery driver out there, kind of like on some DoorDash type of thing, but it's like their version of DoorDash out there. And you know, delivery drivers that work for DoorDash, they'll have like those little red boxes, little red cases that they'll keep food in to keep warm or keep cold or something like that, right?
Yeah.
They searched this dude's bag, and inside they found an 800-year-old mummy in the fetal position.
What?
This dude was only like 23 years old. When they asked him about it, like, what the hell is this? There's a dead body in your bag. He pretty much explained to them that the mummy was his spiritual girlfriend, and he named her Juanita.
What?
Yes. And the way he got it, I guess apparently it's been in his family for hella long, for like 30 or 40 years. And I think like his father or his grandfather bought it off of some dude. And it's just been in their family for hella long. And apparently this kid would sleep with the mummy, sit it on his couch and watch TV with it. Like he really thought it was his girlfriend for us. The police confiscate this thing from him because he's obviously not supposed to have this. They gave it to like some museum out there in Peru.
Yeah.
So that it could be like, you know, actually put on display properly. And what they found out is that the mummy wasn't a Juanita. It was a Juan.
It was a guy the whole time.
The mummy was a 45-year-old man. Like I said, it was over like 600 to 800 years old. The reason why he even brought it out of his house that day is because he wanted to show off to his friends the mummy that he had.
Ew.
The 2 friends that he was drinking with at the park.
Ew.
They ended up arresting him, and I don't know for how long he went to jail for, but he went to jail for a cool minute though.
I just don't understand how people get into that.
Apparently he thought that it was his girlfriend though.
You know?
Born on October 13th, 1991, Sarah Payne had 3 other siblings, a younger sister and 2 elder brothers. On July 1st, 2000, the family traveled to Kingston Gorse in West Sussex to visit Sarah's grandparents. Following dinner, the family decided to travel the short distance to Kingston Gorse Beach, where they spent some time throwing stones into the sea. Sarah's parents and grandparents left the children to play on the beach while they went to visit friends nearby. Sarah's brothers, who were 12 and 13 years old at the time, were held responsible for their age. Sarah and Mike, Sarah's parents, had stopped at the local pub for a quick half pint on their way home. Mike's mother was standing outside while holding Sarah's sister's hand tightly when they arrived. Sarah and Mike were asked if they had a Sarah. They refused, claiming that they had left the youngsters to play together. Her brothers informed their parents that they were unable to locate her. Sarah had vanished after they had barely walked 150 yards from the grandparents' house. Sarah had gotten lost on her way home, so the family quickly began scouring the neighborhood for her, but she was nowhere to be seen. They had gone to play in a nearby cornfield, according to Sarah's brothers, as they had done many times before. Sarah had become separated from her brothers while playing and had vanished in an instant. Sarah's parents began a frantic search for their daughter right away, but to no success. What had started out as a pleasant summer afternoon had transformed into an endless nightmare. There was still no sign of Sarah after an hour of searching with the help of several locals, so the police were contacted. The police started looking for Sarah right away. Lee, her brother, informed them that while rushing home to inform his parents that they couldn't find her, he observed a man in a white van driving erratically and laughing broadly. The man waved at Luke as he passed by, and Luke said he didn't think much of it at the time. But now, he suspects the man of being involved in Sarah's disappearance. And so did the cops. He was quite scruffy, looking like he hadn't shaved in ages, Luke said of the man. His face was covered in white stubbles, and hair was flecked with gray. He was filthy and filthy. On the evening of July 1st, a number of suspects were taken in for questioning, including convicted sex offenders, and anyone who possessed a white van was asked about their activities. Roy Whiting, a well-known pedophile, was their first stop. They had no evidence against him when they questioned him. They only had suspicions. As a result, after interviewing him, they had to depart. In 1995, he kidnapped and raped a 9-year-old child and was well known to the authorities. Her disappearance occurred only 5 miles from his apartment, heightening suspicions even worse.
2 women have been arrested in connection with the investigation into the death of Jacqueline Mimi Torres, 12, whose body was found on October 8th inside a container behind an abandoned home on Clark Street. The victim's mother, Carla Garcia, has been charged with murder, while her aunt, Jacqueline Garcia, faces charges of cruelty to persons. An arrest warrant has also been issued for Carla Garcia's boyfriend, Jonathan Anita, who is accused of murder and tampering with evidence. Police are still searching for him, and unconfirmed reports suggest he may have taken his own life. According to investigators, Mimi's body was in an advanced state of decomposition. Authorities believe the girl died in the fall of 2024 while living with her mother in Farmington. Early findings suggest that she may have been subjected to prolonged abuse and malnutrition. An autopsy is underway to determine the exact cause of death. Victor Torres, the girl's father, and his wife, Frances Melendez, said they learned of Mimi's death on Thursday during a meeting with police. Victor Torres stated that he had not seen or spoken to his daughter since before her 12th birthday, on January 29th. He explained that Mimi had been living with her mother, who had custody, and that he had been unable to reach her for several months. Carla Garcia is currently being held on a $5 million bond, while Jacqueline Garcia is being held on a $1 million bond.
So check this crazy ass loophole I just went through. I nutted in the condom. Put water in the condom. Okay? Then you want to take it a step further, put the condom over a light. At that point, you're going to see a homemade lava lamp. Not cabin though.
Continue to look into the murders that happened in the house behind me. 4 innocent college students now 3 weeks ago. Still no significant developments. Still no named suspect. Still no named persons of interest. I want to bring back in Ashley Banfield. And Ashley, I've been looking forward to this because I want to talk to you about this new information that we confirmed just before the special today. The new information is that Kaylee Gonzalez's injuries were significantly more brutal. That is what I can say. Significantly more brutal than her best friend Maddie's injuries. What do you make of that new piece of information, Ashley?
Well, it's astounding, for one, because this is the first time, Brian, that you've been able to get the kind of information that helps us to perhaps try to figure out why this happened. Not saying this is definitive, but it certainly is one additional clue as to whether perhaps Kaylee might have been the target. But you got more information that makes it almost more complicated, and that is where the girls were found. So walk us through what you discovered today, because many of us didn't know which room when Kaylee's father said they were found in the same room and in the same bed.
Yeah, let me show you, Ashley. I want to take you up the hill here and get you oriented. This is the front of the house. There's now private security out front. And oh my, because it's going and it's very, very slippery. But we're going to walk you up to the back of the house. No windows on the side of the house. You've got the front door obviously on the front, which we know has the coded lock. On the back of the house, though, is where the bedrooms are. Confirmed that Kate's injuries.
Brian, I think we just lost your mic, and I'm not sure. There, no, you're back. You're back. Can you just repeat what you said in the last 10 seconds? Your mic went dead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was explaining that we confirmed that Kaylee's injuries were more significantly brutal than Maddie's. We've also confirmed that they were on the third floor. I'm going to have Mo show you. Third floor here, where not easy access. You've got the balcony. There's a slider. You can't easily jump up there. So what this has us wondering, Ashley, and I want you to kind of walk through this with me. If Kaylee's injuries were the most severe up on the third floor, and there's no way out of the third floor, would that mean the killer specifically targeted the third floor? Because it doesn't make any sense. Why would the killer go up to a floor where there would not be an easy exit for him? What do you make of that, Ashley?
Well, it's significant in that we still don't know where the killings began. Did they begin on the second floor where Xana Kernodle's room was? And of course, Ethan had been staying over that night. And we now know that that room was the room on the far side of the house. So not the side of the house that you're on right now, on the other side of the house at the front of the house. That's Xana and Ethan's. And then did they progress to the third floor? And while your mic was cutting out, I think the key piece of information that the audience couldn't hear was which room upstairs on the third floor the girls were actually found in. That before now, we only knew they were found together, but we didn't know in Maddie's room or in Kaylee's room. And so as we look at the third floor map right there, bedroom number E, or bedroom E, is Maddie's bedroom, and it looks out the back of the house. And bedroom F is Kaylee's bedroom, and it looks out the front, but also the back where the slider is. So what did you discover about which room? Maddie's room on the left or Kaylee's room on the right?
That's right. We've confirmed that they were in Maddie's room, which is also interesting. That's something that we did not know. So Kaylee's injuries were significantly more brutal, but they were sleeping together.
Raped over 400 times by around 100 men and tormented for 44 days. This is the murder of 17-year-old Japanese student Junko Furuta. Warning: if you have bad anxiety, do not watch this video, as it can send you into a state of paranoia for the next couple of days. You were warned, now let's get into it. The details of what they did to this girl I have never heard of in my life. Junko was born January 18th in 1971. So Junko is a Japanese student attending Yoshio Minami High School and worked a part-time job. She was saving money for a graduation trip. Junko was known to be very well behaved, pretty much liked by everybody. She was quite popular. She had really good grades, and she was an all-around good student and daughter. Junko resided with her brothers and parents. She had two brothers. On the evening of November 18th, 1988, two boys by the name of Mayano and Manedo were walking around town when they noticed Junko on her bicycle. She was actually on her way home from her shift that she had just finished, and it was around 8:30 p.m. Miyano tells Manedo to run over and push Junko off her bicycle, then flee the scene. After Manedo pushes Junko off her bicycle like Miyano told him to do, Mayana walks over to Junko and pretty much is like, "Hey, are you okay? Like, let me help you up. I'll take you home." Little did she know this was a trap. On their walk, he gains Junko's trust enough to where he lures her into a warehouse where he threatens to kill her. Here, he rapes her and then takes her to a hotel nearby and then rapes her a second time. This ain't even the bad part. Miyano then calls the guy that he told to push Junko off her bike and then 2 other men to brag about what he had done. One of the men asked Miyano can he keep Junko alive so that they can keep her captive. This group of boys who had Junko had a history of gang raping young girls and had previously kidnapped and raped a 19-year-old girl, but they released her. This girl never told anybody that she was raped because she knew that the boys had ties to the Yakuza mafia. She was scared of what they would do to her and her family if she said anything. At around 3 a.m., Miyano takes Junko to a park nearby where the other 3 men are waiting. They learn her home address from one of her notebooks. They were going through her things and told her that if she tried to escape, they would kill her entire family. They then take Junko to Maneto's house, which his parents live there, and they keep her there. And 2 days later, Junko's parents report her missing. And to pretty much stop or slow down the investigation, they force Junko to call her parents and tell them, no, I'm fine, I've ran away, I'm staying with friends and I'm safe. In the beginning, when Maneto's parents were around, they were pretending that Junko was Maneto's girlfriend. Soon they stopped this whole act because they realized that Maneto's parents were not going to call the police. Maneto's parents were actually terrified of him because they knew that he had ties to the Yakuza and he had been harmful towards his parents before and had threatened them before, so they did not want any smoke. Here is where 44 days of hell began for Junko. On November 28th, 3 days after her abduction, they invited 2 other boys over and they went upstairs where Junko was. Junko then tries to escape, but of course they stop her. And from all the commotion, Maneto's mom comes upstairs to see what's going on and they assure her that, oh, we're just messing around, everything's fine. And when Maneto's mom went back downstairs, this is when these few boys began to gang rape her. It was said that she was in a state of unconsciousness during this particular time and she was just staring at the ceiling, not blinking. On the days to come, Junko is subject to rape on a daily basis. One time she was raped by 12 different men in the same day. Around 100 men got to play with her around 400 times. The original 4 boys shaved her pubic hair and would force her to dance whenever they were listening to music. When she was beaten to the point of not being able to walk, they would force her to sleep on the balcony. They even one time made her sleep in a freezer. Mind you, it's cold outside while she's sleeping on the balcony. She also had items inserted into her up here and in the back. They put metal rods in her, bottles, scissors. They would even put fireworks in her and light them off, which left her unable to poop and pee properly. Through all this, they're feeding her very little food, hardly giving her anything to drink. She's very malnourished. They're forcing her to drink large amounts of alcohol. She got so sick that she couldn't even keep water down. She would throw it up immediately, which enraged them and would anger them. They forced her to inhale paint thinner and would force her to smoke multiple cigarettes at once. Her legs and arms were repeatedly burned while she was alive. When they weren't doing sexual things with her, they were forcing her to do unspeakable things, like eating live cockroaches, forced her to drink her own bodily waste fluids. They even hung her from the ceiling and would beat her with bamboo sticks, iron rods, golf clubs. They burned her eyelids and genitalia with cigarettes, lighters, and hot wax. She had extreme injuries and horrible infections. It got to the point where she couldn't even walk up and down the stairs to use the bathroom. So she ended up being just confined to that bedroom that she was in and lost control of her bladder and bowels. Her face was actually beaten so bad that her nasal cavity was just full of blood and her brain shrunk from the damage. It was said that she had begged them to actually kill her multiple times to just get it over and done with, because this was happening for 44 days, every single day, just being beat, raped constantly, over 100 men. Her body was getting no break. She got so sick that her body began giving off this rotting smell, which eventually made the boys lose interest in her. One of the boys, one of the original 4 boys that had captured Junko, actually had a big crush on her. At one point, Junko actually calls the police, but before she's able to say anything, they stop her and get on the phone and tell the cops, oh, this was an accident, didn't mean to call. And on a separate occasion, a boy was actually at the house who was invited over, and he went back home and, told his mom and his dad and, his brother about it, and his parents called the police. And whenever the police went over to the place where Junko was being held captive, they answered the door and was like, oh, no, there's no girl here. And the police went on about their business. Which, you're not going to go inside. From here, it gets worse, so just go to part 2.
It's caught on tape by a Houston woman who says she secretly recorded a doctor and staff during her surgery. Now, in these recordings, you hear remarks about her looks and her personality.
Listen carefully, because few ever hear this. Secret recordings a patient says she made from the operating room. Ethel Easter says she hid a recorder in her hair extensions before going under the knife for a hernia operation. Easter says the hospital workers made disparaging comments about her body.
I was appalled, I was distraught, I was violated, thinking that I'm lying there naked after the surgery, and they have me still uncovered talking over my body like this.
And listen to this.
Precious, yes. This is Precious over here, saying hi to Precious over there.
It was racially profiling me, yes, I was offended by it.
Easter says she decided to secretly record her surgery after a tense meeting with the doctor. In a letter to Easter, the hospital, Harris Healthcare, says it has
This brother and sister are the youngest children to be convicted for first-degree murder in the United States. The story of Catherine and Curtis Jones is very controversial and heartbreaking all around. Catherine is the older sister, and her brother Curtis was born only a year later. Their father was very abusive towards their mother. It was very violent, very terrible. When their mother was pregnant with Catherine, their father's abuse was so bad it actually led to their mother's uterus tearing and Catherine having to be born prematurely. When Catherine and Curtis were only toddlers, their mom left their father, so she was luckily able to flee her abuser, but she had to abandon her two children in the process, so she left them with this abusive man. And afterwards, a male relative of their father moved in with them, and this relative began to essay 5-year-old Catherine nearly every day for years. When she tried to tell her father of the abuse, he said he didn't believe her, but her younger brother Curtis told Catherine that he believed her because he was also being abused by this relative. Over the next handful of years, CPS would be called at least 3 times to investigate the accusations that the Jones siblings were being physically abused as well as being essayed, and every single time their father pretty much defended his relative and claimed that his 2 children were liars. Even after the CPS agents uncovered that this unnamed male relative had a history of essaying children, he was a registered essay offender and previously was even accused of essaying his girlfriend's daughter when he was living with her, the father still would defend him, and every single time the CPS investigations were dropped. The system that is meant to protect children has failed Catherine and Curtis time and time again, and their own father and mother have failed them as well. By 1999, 3 adults were living with the Jones siblings, their monster relative, their father, and their father's 29-year-old girlfriend named Sonia Spites, who allegedly also saw the abuse but did nothing. In 1999, Catherine was 13 years old and Curtis was 12 years old, and they've been abused by their relative since they were 4 and 5 years old. They were at their breaking point. Catherine told her younger brother that she wanted to kill all the adults that were hurting them and letting this abuse to go on, as well as, of course, kill their abuser. And for whatever reason, they decided to go after their father's girlfriend first. On January 6, 1999, 13-year-old Catherine and 12-year-old Curtis went and grabbed their father's weapon, while their father's girlfriend Sonia sat and did a puzzle at the kitchen table. They both opened fire on her, and at one point Sonia actually tried to get up and grab the phone for help, but Catherine took it away from her. And once their father's girlfriend was dead, both the children began to panic because now this was real. Catherine tried to clean both their fingerprints off of the weapon, and then she called 911 to report that there was an accident, and then both children fled the home. Catherine and Curtis were caught and arrested early the next morning, and they were arrested on charges of first-degree murder, and they were going to be tried as adults, making them the youngest children to be tried as adults for first-degree murder in the United States. Once they were arrested, both siblings tried to take full responsibility and claimed that the other one had no involvement. They were trying to protect each other. 13-year-old Catherine was even offered a plea deal to testify against her younger brother, but she refused. Ultimately, both Catherine and Curtis were sentenced to 18 years in an adult prison. And then after their release, they would be on probation for the rest of their lives. And they're 12 and 13 years old and going to adult prison. Both of them said that they felt safer in prison than back home with their abuser. Due to Catherine's young age, the adult female prison that she was being sent to was worried about her safety. So they forced Catherine, at 13 years old, to spend the first 3 years of her sentence in solitary confinement, which is seen as like torture to full-grown, fully formed adults. And that's how she spent 13 to 16 years old, completely alone in dark, solitary confinement. And public opinion on the Jones siblings were completely split. There were people in 1999 that saw these children as cold-blooded monsters, and then there were other people that saw them as traumatized children that the system completely failed. And that it was very unfair that these children were being tried and sentenced as adults, having to spend their sentences in adult prison. And there's a lot of people that believe that it possibly would have gone a little bit different if they had been white. In 2016, Catherine was released from prison at age 30. She is now married, she's a mom herself, and she's a huge advocate and voice for victims and for fair sentencing for juvenile offenders. And her younger brother, Curtis, was released the following year, also at age 30, and he is now an ordained minister. So it seems like both of them have been rehabilitated and are trying to live better lives. We've talked about child killers before, and it's always an interesting conversation in the comments about if you think child killers can be rehabilitated. Do you think that juveniles should ever be tried and sentenced as adults, or is it a case-by-case basis? Let me know all your thoughts on this in the comments. Let me know what case you want to see me cover next, and I will see you guys next time.
Oh yeah, one more thing. If y'all see me on Love Island, mind your fucking business, bitch. I'm trying to find love, bitch. Y'all had y'all motherfucking chance.
She had this bizarre fascination with Jeffrey Dahmer. She was obsessed with him and then went on to commit such a terrible, brutal murder that the media called her Lady Dahmer. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it for you guys. This is a horrific case and definitely not the video that you're going to want to eat during while watching. Taylor Schabusiness, that was her real legal name. Taylor Schabusiness was born Taylor Coronado and was raised in Green Bay, Wisconsin. From the outside, Taylor appeared to have a very normal, happy childhood and family, but throughout this entire case, that proves to not be so true. Sadly, Taylor's mother was an alcoholic, and it was really, really bad. Well, when Taylor was only 11 years old, her father woke up to discover that her mother had died in her sleep from cirrhosis due to her alcoholism. And after her mother's death, Taylor was really just in a downward spiral. Her dad remarried very fast, and Taylor was just very angry. She was rebelling, she was acting out and abusing alcohol and substances. She had a boyfriend in school named Shad Tyrion, who will be very important later in this case, and eventually Taylor was even expelled from high school because she was starting fights so often. By 19 years old, Taylor was in full-on addiction. She was using the substance M, like Beth with an M. Taylor actually married her M dealer, a man named Warren Chabot. And after she was married and went to change her last name, instead of taking her husband's last name and being Taylor Chabot, she legally changed her name to Taylor Schabusiness. Taylor Schabusiness. And as you can imagine, this marriage was extremely toxic, and Taylor was just continuing down this downward spiral. In July of 2020, Taylor was arrested for resisting arrest and also battery of a police officer. Only a few weeks later, she was caught in a high-speed chase with police and refused to pull over and was arrested again. Taylor was in a really bad place, and to make matters even worse, she was pregnant at this time while still using M. At 23 years old, she gave birth to a baby boy. Her husband was unfortunately arrested for dealing and was in jail. Taylor really wanted to turn her life around for her baby, so she moved in with her dad and allegedly even got clean. But then 3 really, really bad things happened back to back to back in Taylor's life. First, she lost custody of her baby, and then she found out that her husband had been cheating on her before he went to jail. And then her own father was arrested for SAing a 13-year-old girl that was a relative of his wife, and he was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Taylor Schabusiness was in a really bad, dark place, and she unfortunately relapsed and started using M again. She reconnected with her old high school boyfriend, Shad, who was also sadly using M at this time, so Taylor and Shad would use together and hook up. On February 22nd, 2002, Taylor and Shad were out partying and using with friends, and by all accounts, it was a normal, fun night. At some point, just Taylor and Shad went back to where Shad lived. He lived at home with his mom, and they kept using M and hooking up down in the basement. According to Taylor, Shad really liked it when she held him here on his neck while they were hooking up. Shad was wearing a chain, so she got on top of him and was pulling on the chain to restrict his breath until Shad was unconscious. Now, both of them were very, very much not sober. They had used a lot of substances that evening, not just M, so they were like using a combination, like a cocktail of really hard substances. Does that change anything? Does that excuse Taylor's actions, what she does next? I don't think so, but let me know your thoughts. So while Taylor is pulling on this chain that is around his neck, she said that it was really fun and cool to watch Shad's face turn colors. It went red, and then it went purple, and then it went blue. She kept pulling on the chain harder and harder. At one point, she said she watched Shad cough up blood, and then she said she could even feel his heart stop beating. And she actually said that this excited her, and she kept going and even pulled harder on the chain. And when Taylor realized that Shad was dead, that she just killed him, she wasn't upset, she wasn't freaking out, she had no remorse, no emotion. She actually SA'd his body after realizing he was dead for hours. She actually said that she was playing with his body. She then took a nap, and then when she woke up, she decided she wanted to take Shad's body home with her. So she planned to cut him into pieces in the basement of his own mother's home. While his family slept, she snuck up upstairs into the kitchen and she grabbed sharp kitchen instruments. First, Taylor took Shad's head and she put his head in a bucket, and then she cut off his manhood and also put it in the bucket. And then Taylor took a second nap, and then when she woke up, she cut Shad in half long ways, and then began putting pieces of him into different bags and containers and boxes. And she was still using substances throughout this entire process because she ended up being in Shad's basement for over 24 hours, and she was actually hallucinating at one point and believed that Shad's arm kept regrowing. Like she would cut it off and then it would regrow, and it happened multiple times. And when Taylor finally decided that she was going to go home, she brought pieces of Shad with her, but she forgot the bucket that had Shad's head and manhood in it. So tragically, it was Shad's mother that found his head. She found her son's head in the basement of her own home. She told investigators that her son was in the basement with his ex-girlfriend from high school, Taylor Schabusiness. So officers went to her apartment and they found her minivan in the parking lot, and there was blood on the outside of the minivan. Taylor's clothes and hands were also covered in blood, but Taylor had a fresh, full face of makeup. So she gave herself a full beat after everything I just told you that she did to Shad. And in her minivan, they found a leg and a foot. At the station, Taylor did confess, and she had an extremely bizarre interrogation. She just did not act the way you would expect a person to act. Taylor also couldn't explain why she did what she did. She said that she liked killing him, that it was exciting, that the entire thing was actually really exciting, and to check her undergarments if you wanted to see how exciting it was and how excited it got her. Taylor Schabusiness's trial was watched by so many people because no one could believe that any of this was real. Taylor's defense was that she was not guilty by reason of insanity, that long-term substance abuse literally changed her brain. During her trial, Taylor was seen laughing, like a lot. Also, completely out of nowhere, she got up and attacked her lawyer. One of the most infamous parts about this entire trial was the inclusion of Taylor Schabusiness's obsession with serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. She would lay in bed and take selfies with a photo of him next to her. She also made multiple internet searches regarding Jeffrey Dahmer, like Jeffrey Dahmer's butt and Jeffrey Dahmer walking all sexy into court. And because of how brutal and horrific her murder was and her obsession with Jeffrey Dahmer, the media actually coined her Lady Dahmer. It took the jury 1 hour to come back with guilty of all charges, and she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And this has been slightly controversial. It was even a bit controversial that she was even deemed competent to stand trial in the first place, but let me know all of your thoughts. I'm extremely heartbroken for Shad and his family. No one deserves to die like that, and no mother should ever have to find her baby like that. So definitely let me know all your thoughts in the comments, but while you're there, please make sure that you're respectful, because you have no idea who could be in the comment section reading. Someone that knew and loved Shad could be there, so please just be respectful. And while you're there, please let me know what case you want to see me cover next. Thank you to everyone that suggested that I cover this case. Have you ever heard of Taylor Schabusiness? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys all next time in my next video. Please be a good person to your fellow person.
Let's dive into it. Okay, so the things I want to talk about today regarding this, one of the biggest things, in my opinion, my personal opinion, one of the biggest, like, boom, oh my God, pieces of information was that Dylan and Bethany were not asleep the way that they said they were. I don't understand how that doesn't strike everyone else as being one of the biggest pieces of information, but it's fine, because again, this is my opinion. That big of a lie is something that should be very alarming. And from the beginning, they knew that that was a lie, and they kept telling the same story. Law enforcement, everyone else. They knew that was a lie. They got these cell phone records way before we ever got them. So why was nothing done about the lie? And why did no one think it was concerning that these two girls had said that they went to bed and then never woke up again, when in turn, that's not at all what happened. Not even a little bit, not even closely. So when you have these phone records that come out and they prove that they were literally way active, I'm not talking like I answered a text at 5 a.m. and then I fell back asleep. I'm talking straight activity, nonstop, from the time the crime happened all the way up until the police were called. Now, something else that struck me as odd is that Dylan was hungry, allegedly, right? Because she texted the Uber driver at 2:10 a.m. because she wanted to go back out to the food truck, even though it closed at 2:30. But they were, what, like 5-6 minutes away from the food truck? So they could have gotten there, got food, and gotten back home. But she was hungry at 2:10 a.m. Whatever happened to that hunger? She just didn't do anything about it? No, nothing to eat until, because then at noon the next day, you allegedly still have not had anything to eat because you haven't left the room. And now you're going to be wrapped up with this investigation all the way up until we don't even know when. So when did Dylan eat? She was so hungry at 2:10 in the morning. We're going to come back to some of that weird stuff. But now I want to talk about Eric Gower's weird stuff. So here is the Sigma Alpha Epsilon alumni paper, or whatever this thing is. Look up there. That red circle, thank you for my follower that sent me this. The red circle, that's Eric Gower, okay? So 2015 to 2016, Eric Gower, right there. Oh, 2017, there's Eric Gower again, okay? So Eric Gower is an alumni of this fraternity / sorority, whatever, this fraternity, I guess. So the same fraternity that he was a part of here, 2018. So the very next year, so we don't think that none of this was happening while he was a part of the fraternity, right? It just started happening after he left. Doubtful. They were shut down. They were shut down because of health and safety violations. Well, I've learned that that means typically in this whole grand, whatever this insane organization is, that health and safety violations are typically too much drugs and alcohol, okay? And then it later came out that they The university now knows the investigation included hazing and is currently performing another investigation. So shut down for an abundance of, more than likely, illegal substances and alcohol abuse and hazing, and this was all Eric Gower's, life, right? Because it's just an interesting little tidbit of information. Now, something else regarding this that's interesting is that they would be allowed to rejoin the fraternity in August of 2022. However, it would have to remain dry, and there would also have to be a live-in advisor that made sure that they were following the rules and doing things as they should be. Now, here is just how much the alumni have so much to do with this. So the university was saying that they think that they could repopulate the fraternity August 15th of 2022. That means repopulated, okay? So none of the former members would be able to be a part of the fraternity. They're gone. But the alumni is fighting the university, and they want it open by the spring of 2021. Okay, so obviously the alumni don't care that everybody's just acting like idiots in this fraternity, but you better open it up sooner rather than later. I also want to scoot on over to this document here, and we're going to talk about why that's highlighted in just a second. So also, I feel like we've everything's gotten away from some of the stuff that was originally being said. And I know in numerous articles, numerous statements from law enforcement's mouths, so many things, the smell, they said, when you arrived at the front door of that house hit you in the face. However, no one says anything about the smell. No one says a word. Hunter, Emily, Dylan, Bethany, anybody that was around this house, walking into this house the next day, they don't report any weird smell whatsoever. I don't know that anybody was asked, hey, did you smell anything that you maybe haven't smelled before? But nobody mentions it. But then you have all these officers and people that were going into the house saying, oh my God, the smell was overwhelming. So I'm just really confused. Was there an overwhelming smell, or was there no smell? I personally know what volumes and volumes and volumes of blood smells like, and it is not a nice smell. And it is something that you definitely will recognize as being at least foreign. At least foreign. You might not know, but it will hit you in the face, and you will know that, like, whoa, what is that? Now, we're going to talk about this now, because for someone that didn't know that Ethan was in their house, right? They didn't know that Ethan and Xana had ever come home. It is quite strange that Dylan chooses to call Ethan first at 4:24. Before she even goes down to Bethany's room, she calls Ethan. Now, why on earth would Dylan call Ethan first if she didn't know that Ethan was home? Why on earth would that be the first person outside of Bethany that Dylan calls if she doesn't even know that he's there? Oh, but wait. Bethany too. Why would Bethany call Ethan if Ethan's not there? Why would Bethany call someone that she didn't know where they were? Because it's strange, the pattern of these phone calls at 4:24, at 4:21, and Bethany allegedly doesn't know anything that's going on, right? She thinks that they're just upstairs cooking loudly in the kitchen even though they're not home. But back to back, like BF calls XK and then immediately calls MM and then calls EC. But BF doesn't know what DM is doing on the second floor, right? So like, who's calling Kaylee? DM calls Kaylee, but BF doesn't know that. BF doesn't know what DM is doing on the second floor on her phone. So BF doesn't think to contact Kaylee or try to text Kaylee or call her, but she calls Ethan? And then I want to know, did Dylan tell Bethany that she saw Xana on the floor, and what was their plan? They were just like, oh well, we'll leave her on the floor? Because Dylan runs down to Bethany's room. She doesn't say anywhere in these text messages that she sees Xana lying on the floor. So when they went downstairs, neither one of them were like, oh my God, let's go back up and check on Xana. no one's answering, and you just saw Xana lying on the floor with no pants on. And we didn't have a group meeting when we got down to Bethany's room and say, okay, like, we should probably go make sure Xana's okay, because maybe we should try to get a hold of Ethan or see if Ethan's somewhere else, because if Xana's not okay, I'm sure Ethan would want to know that. Again, none of this remotely, there is zero excuse, zero, for any of the behavior that Dylan and Bethany exhibited during this happening and after. Zero excuses. Zero. You just tell the truth and you're good. Unless your truth could be dangerous for you.
They've been dispatched. Huh? Did he stab you? Hey, how did you get to her? In the black box? Oh my God, dude.
Police head back to the House of Horrors, this time with more urgency and looking for a body.
I'll get off the phone. Okay. Hey, did you talk to Detective Smith? He tell you what's going on?
Yes. All right. So I appreciate this. Here's a lighter before this.
Yeah.
You know my number. What's up, bro? How y'all doing? Same people.
Well, I'm in the overtime now, man.
You gotta come through the back, man. Okay?
Yeah, I can do that.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Thanks for working with me.
All right. Well,
sorry for not letting you in there, bro. Sorry for my attitude. Okay? Give me 5 seconds.
Meet me at the back door?
All y'all.
All right. Hey, watch your front to see if someone will walk with us first. If there's chicks in there, she might be leaving. But doesn't matter, right? It'll be funny if he never comes back and he stole my lighter. Yeah. Joke's on him. I found that lighter. It's all one room. Huh? It's all one room.
If there's a shoe on that or something.
He's not good at hiding.
No. Yo!
Jake!
Do they know what
Alright.
Where are you at?
Where you at, man?
M35, you can send us same 2 force numbers.
Hello, 15.
Alright, we're looking. Hey, how do you get to her? Step up, EMS. Are you injured besides that?
I'm paralyzed.
You're paralyzed.
I'm paralyzed. What's your name?
EMS is en route. Are you cold?
I hurt.
You hurt? Alright, we want to get you out of there, but I'm afraid to move you. I'm going to let EMS do all that, okay?
I hurt so bad.
What did he do to you?
Did you hear the story about the man who was just home chilling with his wife? They had been together for 5 years and everything was going fine. When she says, you know what, babe, I'm going to take a shower. I'll be right back. So she gets up and goes to the shower, and he looks over at the coffee table and he sees her phone, and he's like, let me take a look. She's been acting a little funny lately. Let me make sure nothing's going on. He opens up the phone, goes through her messages, and he finds exactly what he was expecting. She had been messaging another man for months, not just any man, her boss at work, and they've been having an affair. He can't believe this. He like, this is my wife, the woman I pledged my life to? Like, how could she do this to me? As soon as she step out the shower and come back into the living room, he looks at her and says, you and Dave? You been cheating on me with him? Well, she looks back at him and says, what? Why is that a problem? You cheated on me too. And he was like, look, that was just one time 3 years ago. It was just a one night stand. I was drunk. You said you forgive me. And she's like, I do forgive you. So now it's your turn to forgive me. And he's like, no, that's not how we go. Because that was a one night stand. You've been seeing him for months. Y'all in a relationship. And she's like, oh my gosh, come on. What's good for you is good for me. And he's like, no, that's not how it goes. And he storms off. Well, she leaves too. And it's a Friday when this happens. And she doesn't come back for 2 more days, and he's mad. So he decides while she's gone that he's going to do something to get back at her. By the time she reached work on Monday, he had already called her coworkers and told them what she was doing. Of course, they reported it to HR because that's against the rules. You're not supposed to date your boss. And when he heard back through the grapevine, the reaction was that she came out of HR's office crying, and that Dave had came up to her to see if she was okay, and she pushed him away. He was laughing, and he was so happy that she was hurting that he started posting about it on social media. He was like telling the story, and guess what I'm gonna do next? I'm gonna make sure she get fired, and she ain't gonna have no place to stay, and I'm about to hit her up with these divorce papers. She gonna regret the day that she ever tried to cheat on me. She gonna regret that. So he's talking about on social media, and everybody's following on like, dang, you crazy, you wild. And he's enacting his plan, and sure enough, she gets fired from her job, and she stops seeing Dave. He don't even know where she's living at. Well, she comes back to him and tries to talk, and he says, you know what? No way. I'm going to take you for everything. You cheated. I have proof. And when we go in front of these divorce lawyers, you're going to know what's up. You're not going to have anything. And he slams the door in her face. Well, after this, she goes back to wherever she was staying at the time. And then a couple days later, he gets a phone call saying,